Hi again, everyone. This is my second video for Chapter 8, and it is on the bank reconciliation. This is problem 833B, and it's on same page as the other one I just did, 474 to 475. It goes on to 475. And the thing about this bank reconciliation and all the ones they give you in the homework, well, there's not so many, but there's a few. They present them all differently. Why am I having so much trouble saying that? They present them in a different format, and it might become confusing. And they do that purposely, just to that's their goal, to confuse you. But if you stick with that template I was mentioning before on page 450 for Smart Touch Learning, with the always do this and always do that and the sides, you're going to be okay. The only thing on the computer, you don't have sides. It's presented in a vertical format, just like everything in Pearson is. So you're still going to have a bank section and then a book, or this means the company section, the book. But the book section, the company section is going to be below it. So you used to seeing the side by side in the chapter, and then all of a sudden you see it presented in this vertical way. But don't let that throw you, it's done the same way. So this one does have an error, so I'm going to be able to show you how to figure out the error and decide if it's going to increase or decrease cash. And the error is on the company side. Okay? So first things first, how do they present this one? Well, they give you the May cash records of the company, everything that they got from May 4th to May 31st, right? All the receipts of cash, and then everything that they paid out, right? All the checks from 1416 all the way down to 1422 and all the amounts. This is from their cash journal, their records, they're journalizing and posting. And then on the other side, when you go to 475, it shows the book balance of $17,750 on May 31st. So I'm going to put that into my template I made. Okay, so $17,750. I realize when you're on the computer you have to do the bank part first, but I'm pulling this out and putting them where they belong. The banks, I should have probably done that first. It's at the bottom of that bank statement. Ending balance $18,730. Probably should have done that first. Notice they don't match. They never do. Never going to match. But by the time you get to the adjusted part, they're going to be perfect. Okay? So there's things you have to add and things you have to subtract. And they call these reconciling items. And again, go by the template on page 450. So we're going to start with the bank. We're going to look for any deposit in transit. What that means is the company deposited money probably on the last day of the month and it didn't make the bank statement. So we're going to look for anything on the bank statement for deposits that isn't there. Now if you look, you see all the deposits from May 1 to May 22nd. But you don't see the last one that they made on the 31st for $1840. Notice that's missing from the bank statement. That's going to be our deposit in transit. We're going to always add that in. So $1840 is the deposit in transit, which is the deposit the company made on the 31st. Didn't make the statement. So what they like to do is do a little subtotal when you add or subtract something. So I'm going to do the same. So when you add that $1840 to the $18,730, you get $20,570. So that's our little subtotal that we'll have that to subtract from. What gets minused on the bank side? Well, outstanding checks. That means the company wrote a check, sent it out, or did it electronically, and it hasn't cleared the bank. It hasn't gone through the bank. They haven't taken it out of the account yet. We call these outstanding. And they're sometimes listed separately or sometimes in a total form. In this case, we have to figure it out. We have to look at the checks they cashed. We see checks cashed from May 11th, 1416, down to May 31st, 1419. But we actually went past 1419 and did 3 more checks. We did 1420, 21, and 22 that we've already taken out of our cash. It hasn't cleared the bank yet. Okay? So those 3 checks at the bottom, 14, 20, 21, and 22 are going to be outstanding. We're going to minus them out. So the outstanding checks, and this one they want us to list separately, 1420, 1421, and 1422. Okay, we have to put our amounts. 1420 was for, oh my God, 1420, how confusing is that? They love to do that crap, that stuff, I should say. 1421 is for 900. Couldn't they just pick a different number and make it easier on everyone? 1422 is for 670. So those are the 3 that haven't cleared the bank. So we have to minus those out in order to get a true balance. So add those 3 checks up, the total's $29.90. My spacing isn't that great, but I'm trying. So our total minuses are these 3, these numbers, these amounts. 1420, 900, and 670 totals $29.90. We're going to take that away from the subtotal, $20,570, and we'll have our adjusted bank balance. So when I minus that out for an adjusted balance per the bank, $17,580. Now the bank didn't make any errors. If they had made an error in cashing a check or not putting a deposit in correctly, we would have had to figure out if it added in to the money, if the mistake was an addition mistake, or if it caused cash to be less. We are going to have a chance to do that on the company side, okay? But as far as we see here, this is totally done, okay? Now we're going to go to the company side. We already put in the balance per the company's book, $17,750. So what do we have to add? Well, we look at our additional data. A is the EFT. EFT is electronic fund transfer. Credit was the receipt of rent. The EFT debit was an insurance payment. Well, the payments are going to be for the minus, so we don't want that one, but we do want the EFT receipt. So the collection of rent is going to be added. Collection of rent. I'm trying to make a column here. Let me move this 17,750 over, and maybe I'll do better in getting a column out of it. Okay, EFT, that's supposed to be collection of rent. I know the collection is abbreviated. That's $450 they collected. They paid the bank directly and went right into the account. And we're going to take care of the payment down here, okay? So let's see what else they have. There was an NSF check received from a customer, means the check bounced. That's also going to be a negative for the company. We're going to wait on that. A $1,700 bank collection was for a note receivable. Okay, that's an addition. Okay, they have a bank collection of a note. In other words, the bank collected a note on our behalf and put it in our account. For some reason, I spelled collection out in full that time. 1,700. So we have 2 additions to cash. Okay. And the total, when we add those, 2,150. I'm going to put a line going this way. So we're going to have a subtotal now for the addition. 17,750 plus 2,150, 1990. No, I'm sorry, 19,900. Okay, I added the 2 additions to the bank book balance of the collection of rent and the bank collecting the note receivable for us. So we added in 2,150, 19,900. Now we just have to do our minuses. And we already know there was a couple that we saw. There was the insurance payment electronically in A. There was the bad check in B. There's also an error. The error is letter D. The correct amount of the check for check 1419 for our rent expense is $1,900. We see that got cashed by the bank on May 31st for the correct amount. However, if you look at the cash payments for us, we recorded that as 1,090. We transposed the 0 and the 9. Transposition is the number one mistake everybody makes in math. Number one mistake. Number two mistake is the sliding zeros around, 1 0 off, adding a 0, taking off a 0, that's number two mistake. But this is a transposition, so it's a mistake, so we have to fix it. The easiest way I know to see how the error is going to go is I'm going to try to make a little corner up here. I know I don't have more space to do it, because I made this as big as I could. But do get the difference between, this was correct, 1,900. Okay, that's a terrible correct, but it's supposed to be the word correct. Better, a little bit, right? And this is what they recorded the check as. They mixed up the 0 and the 9. This is what they did, okay? This is the error they made. Get the difference between what was done and what should have been done. So our difference here is $810. Okay, this is the difference. The difference always equals the error. Whatever that difference is, that's our error. Now that we figured that out, okay, what should we do? Well, we underdid cash, right? We only debited rent expense on our entry for $1,090 and credited cash for $1,090 when it was supposed to be $1,900. So we need to take more out. How much more? The amount of the difference. You can see it's a little bit of an analytical process, and it is the only, I think, complicating factor in this. Other than the fact they keep scrambling up the way they present it. That's another thing. But here's our difference, and that's our error. It's causing cash to come down. So we're going to have 3 minuses here. We're going to have a correction of the error. And remember, when you do corrections of errors, it's only the difference that's the mistake. Whatever the difference is between what you did and what you should have done. So that's 810. We have the bad check, NSF check, and that amount is $1,100. We have the EFT insurance payment, that was from letter A. And that was for $375. And then we have the good old bank service charge. Banks charge a fee for using the checking account, and that's $35. So we have 4 minuses. I forgot about the service charge. I think I said 3. So we have 4. We have the correction of the error. Again, the difference between what you did and what you should have done, causing cash to lower, because remember, we underdid it the first time. Bad check, right? That has to go. Actually, the customer will have to come back and pay that, plus any fees that were incurred. And then the insurance payment, we sent it electronically. That has to come out in the service charge. Add them all up, you get $23.20. Subtract it from the $19,900, and just like magic, you have a perfectly reconciled cash. Adjusted bank balance, adjusted book balance, match. That's the goal. Now this is great. It's a wonderful tool, but just because you did this in a nice report, okay, that doesn't mean anything changed to your cash account. In order to make the 2 additions happen and the 4 subtractions happen, you have to do entries. You have to do adjusting journal entries to everything you did to cash. In other words, plus cash, minus, 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 minus cash. Without the little, of course you wouldn't put the signs. But what I'm going to do now to finish up this problem is erase this and do these journal entries, because they're always pretty much almost always going to ask you for them. Because that's what changes cash, not doing this. This shows you, okay, I'm good, but then you have to make it happen. You don't have to worry about the bank, they take care of their own. Okay, let me show you the journal entries and then we'll be all set. So remember, we have 2 pluses, pluses, oh boy, and 4 minuses. Boy, that was a mess. Okay, so here's May 31st, and we're going to take care of our adjustments that we just did in the reconciliation. We're going to take care of our pluses first. So we have cash going up. And it's rent revenue. They collected rent on our behalf, collection of rent. So we'll call that account rent revenue. And the amount we added in was $450 because that's what the bank collected. So that's our first reconciling item, right? We increase cash and increase the rent revenue. And then they get posted to the T accounts and the cash is going the right direction. And then we had the cash they collected for the note, also on the 31st. So cash increased by the amount of the collection of $1,700, and then the notes receivable decreased because it was collected. Just like accounts receivable decreases when the people pay you. Whoever owed us this money paid, or at least made a payment on the note. There's going to be more about notes in Chapter 9, a lot more about notes receivable. It's just like accounts receivable, except it's due at a particular point in time and there's normally an interest component tied to it, like a car loan. Okay? And now we're going to have 4 minuses. We have the era. Remember that when we recorded it at 1090 and this was be 1900, the difference was 810. So we're going to add that 810 to our rent expense to bring it up to the 1900 it should have been in the first place. And then we're going to credit cash to bring it down. Because remember, we only originally credited it for 1090. So that error becomes corrected and it's like it never happened. So now we have the 3 other ones. The bad check, what we have to do with bad checks is put them back into accounts receivable and hope we're going to collect it. I have this problem at my job with bad checks sometimes, and we have to call the people and they almost always come in and make it good. Just had that happen yesterday. This is from a bad check. We have to put it in because we originally credited their account and debited cash. Now we have to reverse that. So we'll credit cash because the check they gave was no good. People do still give bad checks, believe it or not. And then we have the insurance expense that we paid electronically with an EFT payment. So insurance expense will be debited. And that amount that we paid electronically was $375. And we're going to credit cash for $375. Notice I'm putting the little pluses and minuses, so you'll see how cash is going. The last one is the service charge. That's the easiest. We call that bank expense. Anything to do with a service charge or having checks printed, you call that bank expense. And it was $35. Credit cash for $35. Now that we've done this to our accounts that were affected from the reconciliation, cash is perfect it's at 17,580. Once these all get posted to the ledger, cash is going to be exactly where it should be. And this works every single time you do it, every single month. And that's how you do a reconciliation. Anybody have any questions? Feel free to ask. We are done for now. Bye-bye.